Howdy y'all, and welcome to Creators Gaming. Today we're going to make some creepy ponds for our gaming table. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. To start off with, of course, we're going to use some trash, and we're also going to use some toys that I bought at Dollar Tree. You have to give some credit to Red Dog Terrain because he's the one that gave me the idea to use the tentacles and to make these pools, but I'm going to try to use aluminum foil or tinfoil, a doo-doo-doo, and some resin. A doo-doo-doo is just the insert from a paper towel roll that I'm going to cut into strips. And in case y'all want to buy me a coffee and get a shout out, here is the link for my Buy Me a Coffee link. It's also found in my bio. Alright, so starting off with the tentacles, I'm going to go ahead and cut them into pieces. That way they're easier to maneuver and to position them in the pools. Once I get the resin poured, of course. And we're going to use what I have been using for my dry brush, which is a cupcake box. And I'm going to roughly draw out a shape on how big I want these to be. And we're going to hot glue them down. I'm going to go ahead and cut out two of these so that we have two different pools, one with a monster and one without a monster. I'll probably make some more later just to have a little bit more of a variation to our game. Now on to the doo-doo-doos. We're going to go ahead and slice it straight down the middle, and then I'm going to cut some strips. I don't want them straight. I do want them a little curvy. That way it looks more natural. I'm going to cut out two different ones. That way I can glue them together where I have a larger pool. If you want a smaller pool, just keep them together. Don't even bother cutting it up down the side. I do try to line them up whenever I'm cutting the edges of the pool, just to save time. Whether it actually saves time, I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and put a dab of hot glue on the ends and kind of glue it together, and then I'm going to glue it onto the base. Just following that line at the very bottom, and don't worry, it'll hold its shape. You don't have to sit there and mess with it. Next comes the fun part. I am going to put it shiny side down of the aluminum foil or tinfoil or however you want to call it. I grew up calling it tinfoil, so tinfoil it is. And then I'm just going to kind of scrunch it up and put it around the edges. It doesn't have to be too fancy, and just put a little bit of hot glue here and there to hold it down. In case you're wondering why I'm using tinfoil to begin with, I'm worried that whenever I pour the resin that it will spill and get everywhere and make a mess. So next I'm just going to cut it to size and hot glue it on the edges to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Now whenever I do the final touch, it'll hold it on better. It won't scrape off as bad. It'll scrape off a little bit, but with the lichen and the moss that I put on it later, it won't be too shiny, so don't worry too much about that. It'll actually look better with the scenery with a little bit here and there, because if it's too perfect, it doesn't look right. Off screen, I'm going to go ahead and spray paint them and get them ready for the next step. I did give it a base coat and kind of a beige brown, but I'm going to go over it with a little bit darker brown. I think this is chocolate. I'm not sure. I don't know if you can read that. I've already put the bottle up, so I don't know. In the center, I am making sure to get a good even coat. I'm not going to be as diligent on the sides because a little bit of beige on the outside looks pretty good. I'm happy with the way they turn out. And once I put on the moss and the turf, it really comes together really good. And the places where I don't think that it's going to hold up too well, I do add a little bit of resin, and it holds up pretty good. Just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just the first step. Dry brushing will really bring everything out, and then we're going to seal it afterwards just to make sure that the paint doesn't chip off. Out here I'm getting another piece of cardboard ready for some dry brushing. I do try to use trash instead of using new. That way it reduces the cost on the projects. Starting with a green dry brush, and then I'm going to move on to a yellow to give it kind of a mossy, nasty look. Which in a dungeon, you're not going to have a nice, clean pool. Just need to wait for that to dry, and then I can move on to the yellow. we're just going to go ahead and dry brush with the yellow like we did with the green. Just going here and there, not hitting all of it, just making sure to bring out the details. I think it looks pretty good at this stage. I can't wait to pour the resin inside. For this step, I'm going to go ahead and use reindeer moss, and then I'm going to use some regular turf. I don't think I record a whole bunch of me using the turf, but I do use it. I like having a little bit of that gritty look to it, to where it looks nasty and dirty. I do use the little eyedropper to get the resin where I want it. And I think I tried to glue the glue stick to the back too soon on this because it didn't want to hold. It usually does great. I only have to do it once, but I had to kind of hold it on this. I have no rhyme or reason on how I stack these because mine are not supposed to be identical, although you can make them identical. It's a bit too tedious for me, so we're not even going to attempt it. Hindsight, I do wish I had glued on some twigs and some rocks, but it's too late now. So it still looks great. I'm really happy with the way they turned out, and I'm planning on making some more. Although the next ones, I am not going to put the tentacles in the resin like I did on these ones. My husband suggested gluing them onto a clear piece of plastic and then just setting them on top. That way they're interchangeable. I'm just choosing out some different flocking. I'm going to use some of the big stuff, but I'm also going to use some of the fine stuff. And I'm just going to reuse some of the flocking that we've used in other projects and just set aside. Because it's so mixed, it's not just green and it's not just brown, it'd be perfect for this project. And again, no pattern to it. I'm just doing whatever I feel like doing, whatever feels right, whatever looks right. That's about it. Use regular PVA school glue, or you can use the off-brand cheap stuff that I'm using here. It works just as good. For this step, I'm just going to use my clear resin because I don't have the other kind. This is a half and half pour resin, so I'm going to use half of the A and half of the B, which is the hardener and the actual resin itself. And I have had time to play with the different colors. I find that the mica powder works the best on coloring these. I have used the alcohol colors, but I see that it tends to make it a little too watery and it doesn't solidify the way it's supposed to. So you can use mica powders. Mica powders work great. You can use the set that they sell at the craft stores, or you can go up to Dollar Tree and buy some eyeshadow, crush it up, and it works just as good because guess what? It's mica powder. For this particular project, I am going to be using Parakeet Green, which is kind of a sparkly, shiny green. I really like how this turns out. It looks slimy and gross, and I'm not going to bust the bubbles because I think that adds to it. To mix it up, I am using half of a solo cup. It's just an old cup that we used a while back. I cut it in half because you lose quite a bit of the resin in the pouring and the mixing. So I'm just going to use the end of a popsicle stick to drop the coloring in. You need about that much. It's not really a whole lot, but I think it makes it really, really gross looking and kind of cool. And since I'm not worried about bubbles, I am mixing it pretty vigorously. And you can fill it up as far up as you want, depending on what your preferences are. I am making sure to get it on the sides a little bit, that way it looks messy and looks like something's crawled out of there. And on this one, I am going to go ahead and plop down my Dollar Tree toy that I clipped up for the tentacles climbing out of this nasty little pool. Now in hindsight, I probably should have painted it first before I stuck it in there. I did end up painting it later. I don't think I caught video of that, but you get the gist. Now onto the protective coat. I am using a clear matte color. I did cover up the pool with the lid, that way that side is still shiny at the end. there you have it. Super easy, super quick little pools for your monsters to crawl out of. And if you like the video, please hit the like, subscribe, share the video. It helps out a whole lot, and I hope to see y'all next week. Bye.